Mom and Dad gave me the go-ahead to move in. If there's a problem, feel free to call the cops. My older sister Hillary flashed a smug, defiant grin. Before me stretched a room swallowed by total disarray. My one immaculate refuge had been walked over like it meant nothing. My name is Kate. I'm 31 years old. I'm an interior designer who carved out a name for myself in Miami. As a teenager, I dove headfirst into the world I had always fantasized about. I labored without pause, eventually founding my own design firm. Today, I work with South Florida's high society, steadily growing what I've built. My success lives in my second home overlooking South Beach. A minimalist white canvas filled with art and furnishings gathered from across the globe. A place that endlessly fuels my creativity. Still, I wasn't satisfied. My next goal, expand to the West Coast. Beverly Hills. Launching a new design studio and gallery would demand a heavy investment. Serious capital. So I made a pragmatic choice. I would lease my Miami penthouse and channel the rental income into the expansion. Once the plan crystallized, I moved fast. First, I reached out to Steve, my most trusted property manager, to locate the ideal tenant. Then I had my attorney draft an airtight lease agreement, one that would anticipate every possible scenario and shield my interests as a landlord. My philosophy has always been, in business, everything hinges on contracts and fine print. To make sure the property was flawless, I refreshed the interiors and had a cutting-edge security system installed. Within weeks, the penthouse shimmered like a five-star hotel suite. I was certain it was ready. All I needed now was the right person to occupy it. At that moment, doubt had no place in my mind. I never imagined the one who would trample my sanctuary was far closer than I realized. My parents led quiet lives in suburban Florida. A standard middle-class couple who never fully understood the magnitude of my career. One weekend, I stopped by to share my plan, to rent out the Miami penthouse and fund my West Coast dream. Mom, Dad, I've decided to open a new studio out west, I began. So I'll be renting out my Miami place for a stretch. My father squinted with pride. That's wonderful, Kate. I'm proud of you. But my mother's expression tightened. Rent it out. To strangers. That beautiful home. Isn't that a risk? Don't worry, Mom. I'm using a management company I trust, and my lawyer is on it. Everything will be above board. And then it happened. As if she'd been lying in wait, my sister Hillary swept in with her 3 children. She must have been listening from the hallway. Kate's leasing her apartment, she announced, dripping with feigned surprise. The children turned the living room into a playground in seconds, vaulting off the sofa and demanding snacks. Yes. It's for business, I said flatly. Hillary's face glowed as if she'd just won something. Oh, perfect. Then you can rent it to us. Her tone was so breezy, so sure, I couldn't process it at first. Rent it to you? Right. Our place is way too cramped now that the kids are getting bigger. And your penthouse is in such a desirable school zone, isn't it? It'd be ideal for the children's education. Her eyes shone with eagerness. In her imagination, the future was already written. She and her brood would nest in her little sister's luxury high-rise, rent-free, while her kids enjoyed top-tier schools. I brought her back down gently but without wavering. Hillary, this is a business arrangement. The rent is part of my investment plan. Hillary's eyes went wide with theatrical disbelief. Rent? You honestly expect us to pay rent? Her voice rang through the room. Even the kids froze for a beat. My mother took her side instantly. Kate, how can you speak that way? Hillary's your one and only sister. And look at her. All these children. Surely you can lend a hand for a little while. Lend a hand? What does that mean, Mom? This is my property, my venture. Not a handout. Even to myself, My voice sounded colder than I meant. My father's brow creased as he tried to mediate. Let's everyone just calm down. But once Hillary's fuse was lit, there was no putting it out. She set her hands on her hips and stared me down like some righteous crusader for justice. Kate, you just don't understand. You have zero idea how hard it is for a regular family raising 3 kids. All you ever care about is money. You've never once stressed over grocery bills or tuition like we have you? The unfairness of her accusation almost made me laugh. She had no clue how tirelessly I had worked, the risks I'd shouldered to earn the life I now had, and she never cared to know. To her, I was simply the lucky little sister coasting on easy cash. You wouldn't get it, Hillary's voice pitched into shrill, frayed hysteria. You live all alone in your fancy apartment, doing the work you love, raking in money. What's so wrong with helping out your family a little? And now you say you expect your own sister to pay rent? You're so selfish, Kate. You have no heart. Selfish. I let the word hang in the air, tasting it for the first time. Blood surged to my head, a haze of heat that clouded my vision. Not anger, exactly, more like stunned disbelief at the sheer absurdity. Then my mother pushed the knife deeper. Hillary's right, Kate. You have the means to support your family. That's what family is for, isn't it? God expects the fortunate to share with those who have less. God. I nearly laughed aloud. This wasn't generosity. It was sanctified entitlement, dependence masquerading as virtue. I rose without a word. That's enough. This conversation is finished. My decision stands. I turned to leave the room, but Hillary's shriek sliced after me. Don't you dare walk away, you ungrateful little brat. That so-called family meeting hadn't been a dialogue. Just an exhausting, pointless assault on my patience. A few days later, Steve from property management called. Kate, I've got good news. We've had several inquiries, but one couple in particular stands out. Both physicians. Impeccable background, glowing references, and they're captivated by your aesthetic. Would you be open to meeting them in person? This was exactly what I'd hoped for. Doctors would be model tenants, responsible, respectful, financially grounded. Absolutely, Steve. Set it up, I said without missing a beat. The showing was scheduled for Friday at 2. That Friday, I met Steve and the Fords in the lobby of my building. Dr. Ford was poised and polished, his wife radiated intelligence and warmth. The moment our hands met, I knew. Right this way, I said, pressing the private elevator button with quiet assurance. As we rose, Steve described the building's sophisticated security systems, weaving a thread of polite conversation. This second home means the world to me. I designed it right after opening my firm. It symbolizes where it all began. Standing before the door to the living room, I placed my finger on the smart lock. I'm confident you'll adore it. A soft click. The lock released. With practiced ease, I pushed the door open. Please, come in. But the words snagged in my throat. What sprawled before me wasn't the pristine, artful space I had so lovingly built. The Italian glass coffee table, which should have anchored the room, had been shoved aside, buried beneath a half-eaten cereal box and a carton of milk. The pure white leather sofa was draped in a garish cartoon blanket. The floor was littered with bright plastic toys, scattered like traps. And right in the center sat Hillary in sweatpants, clutching a bag of potato chips, a loud children's cartoon blaring on the television. Beside her, little Mia, the youngest, was scrawling crayon across one of my treasured art books. Behind me, I heard Steve inhale sharply. The Fords stood frozen, trying to make sense of the scene. Kate, what the hell is going on here? Steve's voice was composed, but disbelief simmered beneath it. Hillary finally glanced up, as if just noticing us. Not a trace of shame or awkwardness crossed her face. If anything, she seemed mildly inconvenienced, as though we'd interrupted her afternoon. "Oh, Kate, you should have called first," she said, perfectly unruffled. At that moment, I felt something inside me fracture. "Hillary. What are you doing here?" I couldn't keep my voice steady. I didn't know if it was rage or sheer bewilderment. "What? Isn't it obvious?" She crunched another chip, as if this were the most ordinary thing in the world. "Mom gave me the spare key yesterday. So we moved in. You're leasing it to us anyway, right?" A spare key. Right. I'd left one at my parents' place. For emergencies. My mother had handed it over without my knowledge. From the kitchen, the other two children peered out. Chocolate smeared their hands. One was dragging my prized cashmere throw across the floor. At that moment, Mrs. Ford spoke quietly. "Steve, I think we should take our leave today." Her voice was cool, edged with disappointment and discomfort. "Wait, Mrs. Ford, this is a misunderstanding." I tried to salvage it, but it was far too late. Dr. Ford cast me a look of sympathetic but unmistakable refusal. "Yes, let's do that. Steve, we'll wait for your call." The couple moved swiftly toward the elevator. The people who should have been my perfect tenants had just witnessed the worst moment of my life. Steve's face went pale. "Kate, I'm so sorry. I need to get back to the office and sort this out. I'll be in touch." He left as though fleeing a fire. Minutes churned like a storm. The living room held only me, Hillary, who continued watching cartoons as if none of this concerned her, and the children. Silence only amplified my fury. I turned to face her slowly. "Get out." "Huh? I can't hear you." She cupped her ear with exaggerated sarcasm. I said, "Take your children and leave. Now." Hillary set the remote down and smiled. It was the ugliest expression I'd ever seen. "No. Mom said it was fine to live here. This is our home now." Then she delivered the line that sealed everything. "And if you don't like it, why don't you call the police? Go ahead. If you can." That taunt, that triumphant, twisted grin, they were the final match. Watching Hillary's smug face, I was overcome by an eerie stillness. My fury had burned itself out. All that remained was cold, crystalline certainty. I locked eyes with her, slid my hand slowly into my bag, and drew out my phone. "So, what was that you just said? You told me to call the police." "Yeah. I did. Like you'd actually do it. You'd never report your own family to the cops, would you?" She still genuinely believed I was bluffing. I didn't answer. I tapped the screen without hesitation. Then I dialed 3 digits. 911. The smile evaporated from Hillary's face. She flew off the sofa and scrambled toward me, panic-stricken. "Wait, are you serious?" "Don't," I didn't move. On the other end, a calm operator's voice spoke. 911, what's your emergency?" "Yes, this is an emergency." I held my sister's gaze, speaking with perfect clarity. "There's an unlawful entry. My second residence in Miami, South Beach, has been occupied without authorization. Multiple individuals. They refuse to vacate. They're unarmed." As the operator confirmed my name and address, Hillary grabbed for my arm. I pulled away. "Please, Kate, stop. Say you're joking." Her arrogance had crumbled into pathetic pleading. The children, sensing something terrible was happening, started crying. "Unit 251. I'll be in the lobby to meet the officers." I ended the call. Then, quietly, I said to Hillary, who stood paralyzed, "You told me to phone the police." "So I did. This isn't a family matter now. It's legal." I turned and left, the sounds of sobbing and Hillary's shrieks trailing me like a wake. My hands trembled faintly as the elevator carried me down, but regret was nowhere to be found. I sat on the leather lobby sofa and waited. Roughly 10 minutes passed. No sirens, just the soft hiss of automatic doors as two solidly built officers entered. I rose, approached them, and calmly identified myself, laying out the situation with quick precision. They listened without interruption. After I showed them digital copies of my ownership documents, the senior officer, Sergeant Jackson, nodded. Understood. Ma'am, would you escort us upstairs? We rode the elevator together. Even from the hallway, I could hear children's cries and Hillary's shrill voice on the phone, undoubtedly calling our mother. I swiped my keycard. The chaos inside was untouched. The moment Hillary spotted the officers, she froze. What the hell? You actually called the cops? Sergeant Jackson spoke first, calm but resolute. You must be Hillary. This is Kate, the legal owner of the residence. We've received a report that you and others are present without her consent. That constitutes trespassing. Trespassing? I'm her sister. We're family. Family or not is immaterial, Officer Brown replied. The owner has demanded you leave. That means you have no right to stay. Collect your belongings and vacate immediately. At those words, something inside Hillary seemed to shatter. Suddenly she lunged toward me, as if to attack. This is your fault. You're destroying me. Her eyes blazed with hatred. Before she could make contact, Officer Brown seized her arm, holding her back. You're interfering with police duties. Ignoring the warning, Hillary thrashed wildly, trying to wrench free, movements frantic and unhinged. Let go of me, you monster. Her resistance sealed her fate. Officer Jackson moved to assist. Seconds later, she was restrained and handcuffed. Trespassing and obstruction of justice. You're under arrest. Hillary stared, uncomprehending, her mind refusing to accept what had just occurred. She screamed, wept, swore, begged, a torrent of incoherent words. Her 3 children stood frozen, aghast at the image of their mother in cuffs. One wailed without restraint. The living room had become a scene of pandemonium. I simply watched. No sympathy. No pity. Only the cold certainty that this was inevitable. She had done this to herself. As the officers began to lead Hillary out, my phone rang sharply. The screen read, Mom. I didn't need to pick up to know. I accepted the call and pressed speaker. Kate, what have you done? Hillary says the police are, oh my God. My mother's frantic voice flooded the room. I looked directly at Hillary, dazed, handcuffed, and answered, quietly but without hesitation. I did exactly what Hillary told me to do. She said, if you don't like it, call the police. So I did. And none of this would have happened if you hadn't given her the spare key without my permission. What, are you blaming me now? You just wash your hands of your sister when she's desperate. She's 38, Mom. A grown adult. A mother of 3. She's accountable for her own choices. And you may have thought you were helping, but look where that kindness led. You turned your daughter into a criminal. I heard my mother gasp. Hillary stared at me, face drained of color, eyes wide with something like despair, framed by officers. You will never again intrude on my life or my property without consent. From now on, you and Dad are fully responsible for Hillary and her children. Our little family game is over. I ended the call. Turning to Sergeant Jackson, I said evenly, my parents will collect the children shortly. Here's their number. I handed him the contact information. The officers escorted Hillary out. When they were gone, only the confused, frightened cries of the children echoed through the room. I knelt and spoke to them as gently as I could. It's okay. You don't need to be scared. Grandma is coming for you soon. Mia still sobbed at my feet. I softly rubbed her trembling back in silence. They weren't at fault. Their only misfortune was being born to a foolish mother. About half an hour later, my parents arrived, pale and winded. My mother rushed to the children, pulling them into her arms as they wept. My father stood frozen, his gaze swinging between the ravaged living room and my face. Anger, disappointment, maybe even a trace of fear, clouded his features. "Kate, what have you done?" His voice came thin, forced through gritted teeth. "What have I done? I protected what is mine. By law. What's wrong with calling the police on trespassers? They're your family. I've heard that word enough for a lifetime." I cut him off. "Did you ever, even once, consider how much I've sacrificed for your so-called family? Hillary is the way she is because you both enabled her, indulged her, shielded her from consequences, taught her that everyone else would clean up her messes. That stops now. You'll take the children. You can also pay for her lawyer." My mother glared at me over the children's heads, her eyes brimming with contempt. "You're no daughter of ours." The words should have cut deep. But strangely, I felt no pain. Only something close to release, as though a chain I'd been dragging for years had finally snapped. "You're probably right," I said quietly. Then I turned my back. My parents hurried out, herding the children toward the door. It clicked shut behind them. Silence. True, absolute silence settled in. I stood there a long while, looking at the wreckage they'd left. Toys strewn everywhere. Chocolate smeared on the couch. Crinkled candy wrappers scattered. It resembled the aftermath of an illness, finally purged. The decay that had festered inside something called family. That same day, I called a locksmith. Every lock in the house was changed. I would make sure they could never set foot in this sanctuary again. Then I pulled out a stack of trash bags and began to throw away everything. Every toy, every garment, every trace of them. The next morning, I phoned David. His voice was heavy with regret. "Kate, I can't apologize enough for yesterday. I've already personally contacted the Fords to try to mend things, but I'm afraid." "I know, David. Regaining their trust won't be easy." I cut him off. "But my decision hasn't changed. You've done what you could. If you think I should find another management company, I'll understand." "Absolutely not," he said firmly. "Kate, the poise you showed yesterday was remarkable. I'm not losing a client like you over this. Let me handle it. I'll find you the right tenants this time. I'll take full responsibility." His calm, professional tone offered a sliver of relief. There were still people who valued reason, who respected contracts and limits. And that small truth soothed the raw edges of a heart flayed open by family. From there, I moved without hesitation. Within a week, I flew to Beverly Hills to finalize the lease on a property I'd selected for my new studio and gallery. I had ample capital to proceed without the Miami rental income. Proof that I could stand alone. That I didn't need anyone. Several weeks later, I was at my new Beverly Hills office, seated with the design team discussing interior concepts, when my phone rang. David again, his voice electric with excitement. "Kate, we did it. I've found the ideal tenants. A French couple, tech executives who've just relocated. They fell in love with the property on site and offered 1.2 times the market rate. 2 years rent. Up front. Steady income. A flourishing business on the West Coast. And above all, freedom. Freedom from being drained, manipulated, guilt into obligation. Everything I had fought for. Everything I had ever wanted was finally mine." Roughly 6 months into my new life in Beverly Hills, after the rhythm had settled, I received an international call. The name on the screen, Aunt Diane. Calling from Italy. Of all my relatives, she had always been the most perceptive, a woman who had built her own independent life in Europe long before it was common. The only family member I genuinely admired. "Kate, darling, how are you? I saw your new studio featured in a magazine. It's stunning. It had been a while since I'd heard her warm, vibrant voice. After a few moments of easy conversation, her tone shifted, growing softer, almost tentative. I heard a little about what happened in Miami. That must have been incredibly difficult. It's behind me now, Aunt Diane. I kept my voice even. I know. But would you hear me out? It's about Hillary. According to her, formal charges were ultimately dropped. Prosecution deferred, given it was her first offense and she had young children. Still, her life never truly recovered. Word spread quickly through the family. Relatives who'd once lent her money or extended help quietly withdrew once they learned the truth, that the police had been involved, that it was her own recklessness that had caused it all. No one wants to step in for them anymore, Aunt Diane said gently. Even her landlord heard about the incident. After neighbor complaints, her lease wasn't renewed. Even your parents, concerned with appearances, no longer indulge Hillary the way they used to. In the end, they relocated to a cramped, shabby apartment on the outskirts of Miami. I listened without speaking. Oddly, I felt no anger. No satisfaction. Just stillness. Kate, you did the right thing. Her voice was soft, yet carried quiet conviction. You are not required to sacrifice your life for a chain called family. You have every right to protect your own happiness, to build a life that truly belongs to you. Don't ever forget that. Maybe that was what I'd been waiting my whole life to hear. I no longer think of the Miami house as a sanctuary. It's just one of my assets now, part of a portfolio. My real sanctuary lies within. A place no one can invade or claim. Blood alone does not make a family. True family consists of those who respect your life and stand beside you. Not on top of you.